Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Toast, and what a weekend. Several leaks hit over the weekend that has the internet in quite a stir, a frenzy, because if all of this turns out to be true, 3 beloved games will be making a return sometime here in the soonest future, and maybe even possibly more if you really start to look into it. One of these, though, does come from Nintendo, and this one is very exciting. Then another one from the Sega Dreamcast days. That one is quite nostalgic. And then also something from Atlas as well. So we're getting all of those today, and then we'll also talk about Nintendo's big weekend, just in general, and what that means for the future. But yeah, even though this is Monday, you know, everybody loves Mondays, but I think this is still a pretty fun way to start the week. As always, though, if you do like this type of content, do hit those buttons below. I am here every Monday through Friday, so go ahead and join in on all the daily fun by clicking those buttons below. But without further ado, let's just go and jump right into the video, starting off with Resident Evil Village. Yeah, we're not talking about Resident Evil 4 Remake today. That game is still a blast to play, so do go check it out. But with a little bit of a switch up here, instead we're going to talk about Resident Evil Village, and that's because it just got a very welcome update for PC that removes its DRM anti-tamper software, Denuvo. Now, these companies use Denuvo to protect their games from piracy, which is perfectly fine. I think most of us kind of understands that. But the problem with Denuvo in specific is that it feels like it almost punishes consumers who barely paid for the game. What ends up happening is that a lot of these games that uses Denuvo, they also end up having performance problems, which, yeah, lo and behold, Resident Evil Village faced on PC. Big surprise, right? Even then, though, these companies, they do often deny that this has anything to do with Denuvo, which is so tone deaf because we know otherwise. But interestingly enough, these games often do get cracked shortly after launch, which kind of defeats the purpose of this software in the first place. But yeah, again, no surprise here. They end up having better performance when Denuvo is removed, and that's exactly what happened with Resident Evil Village. It got cracked, and then, just like magic, it ran better without Denuvo. This was both confirmed by hackers who cracked the game, and then also Digital Foundry alike, which compared the cracked version to the official using Denuvo. So that right there, that's why fans are always pleased when companies remove Denuvo. And for that matter, Resident Evil Village, it's a great game. If you haven't already played this game already, now with Denuvo being gone, it's a great time to pick this one up. Actually, if you've been enjoying Resident Evil 4 as of recent, Village is probably one of the most similar in the franchise thanks to some of its late game action and just the overall castle setting. It is, again, a great game. Now, we also got an update for Starfield, or kind of. This isn't necessarily for the game itself, but with Starfield being such a huge release for Xbox, probably their biggest release this generation thus far, so they're obviously going to make a big push, and this apparently includes a new Starfield-themed controller. This actually leaked out online last week. We got pictures of this thing and everything, but it was further talked about on the Xbox Era podcast, where it was claimed that it is indeed real, but unfortunately, this does not include a custom-themed console. However, interestingly enough, maybe a headset as well. I don't really know about that decision, but hey, at the very least here, the controller does look flat out amazing. I'd put it right up there as one of their best designed controllers yet, alongside the Forza Horizon controller that they released a year or so back. I mean, all things considered, Xbox has some nice looking controllers out there, so that's saying a lot here. But nonetheless, with all that said, I would really like to see Microsoft put some of that effort also into custom-themed consoles. They did do that for Halo Infinite with a custom-themed Xbox Series X, but since then, it appears they're going to skip out on both Starfield and Diablo 4, which, I mean, to be fair, Diablo 4 is not a first-party game quite yet. Starfield, though, I feel like that this one's kind of a missed opportunity here. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but let me know what you all think about this. Would you like to see Xbox do more custom-designed consoles? And also, are you going to look to buy the Starfield controller? Let's go and talk about all these different leaks, though, because some very interesting things popped up this weekend that I think will have a lot of fans excited. I know I certainly am. But first things first. Anytime we talk about leaks, I always like to spread caution. Do keep in mind that these are only rumors for the time being, and don't go in thinking that this is 100% certain or anything like that. But at the same time, because these leaks have kind of exploded online the way they have, I wanted to go ahead and cover them today and give my own thoughts on whether or not I feel there is a possibility that they could be real. And this first needs to start off with Nintendo. One thing that we have seen a lot from them here in the last year or so is this big GameCube push. I mean, they have Switch Online for the Nintendo 64. They have it for Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, etc., etc. But when it comes to GameCube games, it seems like what they're trying to do is that instead of cashing in on their subscriptions, they're going more into that remastered direction. We saw that with Metroid Prime, Mario Sunshine to a degree, and then also the upcoming Bat and Kaitos games. But we're also hearing there's more to come. This has been claimed by numerous insiders already. We've kind of heard about an F-Zero GX remaster. That's the big one that's been going around as of recent. But now, on top of that, you can also add Paper Mario A Thousand Year Door to the list. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the absolute best GameCube games to date. It's aged incredibly well thanks to its turn-based combat and timeless art style. I mean, you can already see that with Paper Mario 64, which you can play on Switch Online already. But because Nintendo are big goofs that, for whatever reason, won't do a Paper Mario game like this again, it makes this rumor even more exciting. I mean, fans for years literally have been begging Nintendo to make a classic Paper Mario game, but instead, they keep changing the Paper Mario formula. I really don't understand why they do this, but, you know, to be fair, I do think that Origami King, which released a few years back for the Switch, I think that that's an okay game. I just don't think it's as good as Paper Mario 1 or 2. So, if this remaster actually is true, which is still a big if right now, this is kind of our chance to get that classic Paper Mario game once again. And who knows? If it sells well enough, maybe finally it could convince Nintendo to go back to that classic formula. If anything, for anybody that missed out on this game previously, they can check it out on the Switch, which is great to see. Where is this rumor coming from, though? And that's where I think things start to get a little bit dicey. Yes, as much as I'd love to sit here and say I'm absolutely confident that this one is true, I'm not quite there yet. And that's because this is coming from a user on Family Boards that I'm not really too familiar with. Usually, I wouldn't pick up on these stories at all, but again, this one is spreading pretty fast online. Some people do seem to trust this user, and there are some big names involved here, so, I mean, let's just go over the post here. So this is coming from Pikmin Snezkov, which says, "Good evening, fammy. Hope you are having a brilliant day. I usually don't do this as I don't like attention, and I hope even after this we will focus on the game, not me. As some of you know, I do hobby journalism behind the scenes and research various things for fun. Some accurate Nintendo rumors that were reported on by YouTubers and other sites in the past partially were based on my research." I actually did not know any of this, so that's quite interesting there. But it continues on to say, "As I said, I don't like attention and thus always asked everyone to keep me private, which I intend to continue to remain private in those stories. However, now I have something super excited that I'm aware of. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remaster is finally happening and coming out soon. I've been in touch with 3 sources with this. One of them redirected me to the third source, who I had interacted before, so it was just me cold messaging them on LinkedIn. Because this third source would acknowledge the release date I had heard from the previous 2 sources, I'll just leave it as quote-unquote coming soon. I informed both Nintendo Prime and Nate Drake about this privately. There's one more person I've informed, but they wish to remain anonymous. I personally had always wished for the Thousand Year Door remaster. I never played it on GameCube, so I'm over the moon excited to finally play it on Switch soon." So one thing that's kind of interesting here is that this person claims they've talked to both Nintendo Prime and Nate Drake about this, and that's where I think that it does raise some alarms. Both of them do have a pretty decent track record, so who knows? This could maybe be true. Again, I'm not 100% sold on this one just yet, but if I'm just kind of speaking from my own heart here, I sure hope it is. I personally love the Paper Mario games, and I do hope that this is true. If anything, though, this person does claim that it's coming quote-unquote soon, so, I mean, this might be announced at an incoming direct and just kind of drop. We saw that happen with Metroid Prime Remastered, and something similar might happen with Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, which would make for a good summer release. Now, as for these other 2 games that's been making the rounds, these are Sega-based games, being Persona 3 Remake and then also Jet Set Radio. Now, this is a rumor that I'm a little bit more inclined to believe just because There's already been some smoke for both of these releases, especially for Persona 3 Remake, and this just kind of adds more fuel to the fire. So what's happening here is that somebody apparently posted early footage of both of these games online. Now, I'm not going to post footage on my channel for copyright-related reasons. I will leave links in the description below, though, so do go check those out. But supposedly, these are small snippets of gameplay that was a part of an internal Sega Japan meeting back in 2021. One snippet included Persona 3 Remake, which actually looks pretty good. Then there was one for Sonic Frontiers, and then lastly, one for Jet Set Radio. Now, considering the quality of each game shown, some people believe that it would be difficult to fake a leak like this. But even still, do kind of keep in mind, as always, nothing is confirmed. What I will kind of say for myself, though, is that I think that if you start to piece together the different things that we've heard in the last few years, I think that this is very plausible. I do believe, based on some of the things that we've already heard, the Persona 3 Remake is happening. Then also for Jet Set Radio, there was some claims last year that Sega was developing a new entry. Bloomberg did post a report around April of 2022 that Sega is working on a big-budget Jet Set Radio reboot as a part of their Super Game initiative. This is reportedly alongside a Crazy Taxi. So again, I think that if you start to piece together some of the things that we've heard in the last few years, this story starts to come together to tell a more full story. Again, there was that Bloomberg report. There's also been some polls from Sega where they've been gauging interest for some of their dormant franchises like Jet Set Radio and Skies of Arcadia, which interestingly enough is also currently rumored for a return as well. And then on top of that, back in 2021 in Sega's financial report, they did suggest that they were looking into their dormant IP to see what was worth a remaster, what was worth a remake, or even a reboot. They even included a list which named Jet Set Radio, Crazy Taxi, and also Soul Hackers, which, by the way, yeah, that one got a sequel here recently as well. So yeah, I think by this point, it's becoming evident that several Sega games are inbound for a return. Today's leak, I think, just only kind of adds to that. And by this point, Persona 3 Remake, a Jet Set Radio reboot, a Skies of Arcadia remaster, and even a new Crazy Taxi game are all rumored. So while none of this is necessarily confirmed yet, with that Sega financial report being based on 2021, and also with this new leak making waves also being based on 2021, we might start to hear about these games relatively soon. Now, one last thing I want to touch upon today is the Mario movie. I'm sure a lot of you all watched it over the weekend. It was a blast, right? Jack Black's Bowser was flat out amazing. I loved it so much, but the power of Nintendo with a high-quality animation has proven to be a winning combination. The Mario movie has gone on to claim the best opening for an animated movie of all time, raking in $377 million for its first 3 days, beating out Frozen 2, which made $358 million. It's well on the way to become a $1 billion movie, which is quite impressive. The power of gaming, it just brings us all together, so there you go. Now, with that said, I don't find any of this necessarily particularly surprising. Mario is probably the most recognizable video game character of all time, and really it's probably just one of the first games that a lot of gamers played growing up. So you combine that with a fun story and a beautiful animation, and here you go. A huge, massive success. If anything, though, I think this will convince Nintendo to further invest into these movies. Again, I'm sure we will get a sequel. They do kind of tease that and everything. But hey, maybe also a Zelda movie or show. Maybe Metroid down the line. And hey, don't stop there. Nintendo has kind of reached a new pinnacle here that I think will further put gaming in a spotlight for that mass public, and that could be a great way of getting even more people into gaming. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day. Though we're asked you all, do you use Xbox Series to emulate games? This has kind of been a big story over the last week, as Xbox is now blocking emulators from running on retail mode. You can still do that on the dev mode. Do keep that in mind. But I wanted to kind of see how many of you all actually use this feature, and as you can see here, only 13% of you all actually use it. 6% of you all said yes a lot, then 7% said yes, but only occasionally, and then 72% of you said no. So yeah, it does appear that this is kind of a niche feature. I mean, it is a nice thing that the Xbox can do, but yeah, it does seem like not a lot of you all are actually using it. Even still though, if you are interested in emulation, if you do have an Xbox Series, it really is one of the best ways to emulate games on a modern TV. And yes, even though they are blocking emulators from running on retail mode, you can still easily get this up and running on developer mode. You will have to pay, I believe it's a $20 one-time fee to do this, but if you do decide to go in that direction, you can easily switch from developer mode to retail mode, go back and forth, and just kind of emulate your games that way. So I don't know if it's really as big of a deal as some people are making it out to be, but either way, the Xbox Series continues to be a beast when it comes to emulation if you do decide to use it for that. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to hit the notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.